Top 10 True Crime Novels. The weird subgenre of fictionalized true crime is filled with works that range from being quite poor to being wonderful. They go beyond the non-fiction recitation of known facts to envision the subjective experience of the players. They fill in the unknown or reorder known events in such a way that they make narrative sense, and they imagine the experience of the audience as well. This can give stories that are already well-known a powerful new layer of meaning, in addition to the added thrill of being broadly based on fact. Here are the top 10 true crime novels to read. Number 10. George Louis Borges' A Universal History of Iniquity. This is a collection of short stories that were originally published in the newspaper Critica during the years 1933 and 1934. Borges explored a variety of topics including tales about Ching Shih, the Pirate Queen, and Billy the Kid, who Borges renames Bill Harrigan. John Murrell, a horse thief and preacher who led his slave uprising in 1835, was also one of the topics that Borges covered. Each of the tales is fragmented and presented in imagined situations interspersed with chunks of information. In a later edition, Borges penned an introduction for the book, which read as follows. These are the irresponsible game of a shy young man who dared not write stories and so amused himself by falsifying and distorting, without any aesthetic justifications whatever, the tales of others. Despite what he claims, the book is really interesting. Number 9. The Collected Works of Billy the Kid by Michael Ondaatje. A recounting of Billy's travels around New Mexico, including a review of his criminal past as well as an examination of the myth-making and storytelling that has developed around him. When he tells the circumstances that lead to the tragic, short, and violent life of the outlaw, he utilizes an odd, jumbled type of voice in certain portions of it that feel like the outlaw is thinking aloud at the time. I'd have almost spent 5 times as much money on this book only to give it away each time. Number 8. Happy Like Murderers by Gordon Byrne. The book by Byrne about the lives of Fred and Rosemary West and the murders they committed affected me in a manner that I believe all books on true crime should. It made me feel depressed and dirty. He paints a clear picture of the actual life of serial killers, including the superficial effect, the casual brutality, and the suburban brutalizing that occurs in the time leading up to the explosive events that we read about when the bodies are recovered. He spends a lot of time discussing how Fred West's language served as a signal, and he repeats the same sentences numerous times in the style of an operatic aria. I am aware that he found this book more challenging to write than Somebody's Husband, Somebody's Son. Nonetheless, his research on Peter Sutcliffe and the extent of his immersion reveals that the book was worth the effort. It is deeply emotional in a manner that real-life criminal cases almost seldom manage to be. Number 7. Kate Summerscale's The Suspicions of Mr. Witcher, a mystery novel. At the heart of this is the horrible killing in the middle of the night in 1860 of a young boy who was just 3 years old. Dickens, Conan Doyle, and Wilkie Collins were among the authors who wrote about the case. It took place in an attractive and slightly remote property in Wiltshire, with a small group of individuals, and constitutes exactly the sort of beautiful closed-house mystery that is cherished by warm crime books. Its attraction is evident. Reading Summerscale is a fantastic experience since he presents all of the facts from fictitious points of view, and he does this throughout the book. Emmanuel Carrère's novel, The Adversary, comes in at number 6. This account of the extermination of Jean-Claude Roman's family in 1993 untangles a lifetime's worth of inconsequential lies and builds to a conclusion that surprises you even if you have been aware of what has transpired from the beginning. It is icy, emotionless, and in some ways rather terrifying. Number 5. Nationality Wog, The Hounding of David Oluwale by Kester Aspen. David Oluwale was a black man who lived in Leeds and passed away in 1969 as a result of the persistent harassment he received from local law enforcement. This book demonstrates how a fictionalized account of a true crime can accomplish things that no other method can. My worst fear is that I'll be quoted on the back. After reading it in 2007, when it first came out, I was so impressed by it that I convinced Kester to meet with me so we could discuss it. Because so much of Oluwale's subjective experience could only be portrayed by fictionalization, this is the kind of story that can only be delivered in this fashion. This is the only way that it can be told. Number 4. David Peace's Occupied City. The Tokyo Trilogy has now reached its second installment with this novel. Although it is a work of fiction, it does contain elements of the true event of the Tegan incident, which occurred in 1948 and involved the poisoning of a large group of people. A person dressed in a medical uniform entered a bank in the central business district of Tokyo and informed the employees that he was there to warn them about an outbreak of dysentery. He gave the order for the personnel to consume the medication that had been distributed. They succeeded, but the solution was poison. The bank was looted, and 12 of the people who drank it ended up dying as a result. The book provides a view into a world with a populace that was so docile that they would take the poison, but where the police and the judiciary were so untrustworthy that the identity of the murderer is still up for debate over 50 years after the event. Number 3. The novel In Cold Blood, written by Truman Capote. In all honesty, the most well-known item on this list. If someone tries to convince me otherwise, I will fight them. Capote is a god. He asserted that he was the inventor of the genre of the non-fiction novel. However, this renders all autobiographies invalid in my eyes. He became completely absorbed in the investigation, conducting in-depth interviews with the perpetrators of the murder of a family on a rural Kansas property. It's one of those books that logically shouldn't work, but once you get started reading it, you just can't stop. Number 2. Norman Mailer's The Executioner's Song, a short story. The lengthy book was written by a prominent man who despised women. This book, which was released 13 years after In Cold Blood and won the Pulitzer Prize, is about Gary Gilmore. I both disliked and enjoyed reading it. It is incredibly readable, and it established many of the standards that are used in the genre even now. It begins with a history of the topography and culture of the region, followed by the background of Gilmore's family and his early life. After that, it gets onto his crimes and the consequences of those actions. This is the kind of thing you'll enjoy if you're a fan of thick books written by influential individuals. Number 1. A Brief History of 7 Killings by Marlon James. It is a stretch to include this glorious book because it extends the parameters beyond a story of individual criminality to fictionalize the crimes of nation-states, governments, and the CIA. However, it does cover the crack wars of the 1980s as well as the attempted murder of Bob Marley, attempting to make sense of the incomprehensible, which is surely what this forum is all about. Did you like it? Tell us what you think of the video in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting videos.